Welcome to this video on revising, editing and proofreading your essays. The starting point for this video is the first draft of your essay. You can edit your draft on several different levels, and I'm going to go through each of these in more detail in this video. Start off by looking at the content. Go back to your question matrix if you used one. Have you answered all the key questions? Also check your assignment guidance. Have you covered everything in there? You don't want to lose marks by missing out a section that you'd completely forgotten about. Now you can check the overall structure of your essay. What you're looking for here is a logical narrative running through the entire piece. So does the order of the main paragraphs make a logical narrative? One thing you can try to find out is reverse outlining. This is where you pull out each point from your paragraphs to make sure there's a good story in the order you've written them. If not, you can change the order of the paragraphs or even insert new ones so that there's a connection between them. It's also a good way of checking that you've got a clear point in every paragraph. To take that further, use the highlighter tool in Microsoft Word to highlight the peel parts of each paragraph to make sure they're present. So you can highlight all of your points in blue, highlight all of your evidence in yellow, all of your explanation in pink, and all of your links in green. And you can quickly then see if you've got them in each paragraph. The only one that you might be able to get away without having is the link, but only if there's something further down the essay that perhaps links a couple of paragraphs together. The next thing to think about is the flow of your argument. So are you signposting enough to help the reader know where your argument is heading? Signposting are these words shown on the image here. So things like conversely, moreover, in essence, etc. What they do is they help the reader to understand the connection between different parts of your paragraphs, different points in your essay. For example, say we have these 2 points following each other. They're both positive things about exercising, one about maintaining health and the other about social interaction. So therefore, these are adding to each other. To make that clear to the reader, we can put a word in the second point to make sure that that is obvious. Such a word could be furthermore. So there you can see quite easily that one is adding to the other. It's not always obvious though, and this is why these words are really important. Take a minute to look at these. The sentences in pink are 3 possible following sentences to the one above in green. Pause the video and see if you can work out whether they're cause and effect, a comparison, contrast, addition or examples. So if we look at the first one, the initial point is about discount supermarkets offering better value for customers. And this one is talking about the big 4, which is the opposite of discount supermarkets. And it's saying that they offer a greater selection of products. So therefore, this one is almost certainly a contrast. To make that clear, we can put a signpost in that shows this, such as however. If you thought it needed a different type of signpost, that just goes to show the importance of having them, because your reader may also have been confused. By putting that word in, you're making it absolutely explicit. So the next one. This is talking about one type of discount supermarket, Lidl, and saying that it's introduced this in-store bakery. Therefore, this is an example of the previous point. To show that, we can put a little phrase in there, in the case of Lidl, and that immediately makes it clear that you're giving an example. The final one is a reaction to the first point. Because discount supermarkets offer better value, the big 4 are having to change. So therefore, this is a cause and effect. And a word like consequently immediately shows that. Be very careful of using these erroneously though. If something isn't a consequence of something else, don't use the word consequently. These phrases have very specific meanings, and if you use the wrong one, it can be worse than using none at all. There are lots and lots and lots of different signposting words. Here are just some examples. The next thing you should look at is the academic writing style. Are you writing in a way that is suitable for this level of work? So that means things like not using colloquial phrases and contractions like isn't, don't, couldn't, that sort of thing. These are also important as well. So are you complicating things unnecessarily? A lot of people think academic work needs to be very complex and use lots of different long words. This absolutely isn't the case. Yes, there may be the occasional complex word that is important to the discipline, but most of the writing should use basic English. If you're overcomplicating it, you're making it unclear. The most important thing about academic writing is that it's easy to understand. So keep it simple. You're not dumbing it down. The next thing to think about is, are you using appropriate caution? It's very important not to make sweeping statements in academic writing. So beware of implying that something is absolutely certain. It's much better to use what we call hedging phrases. These are phrases like, this could suggest that, this may imply that. That little bit of caution shows that you are aware that not all knowledge is definite at this level. You're working with a lot of very new research, and a lot of things are only theories. Although your English should be simple, it should be formal. So you want to make sure you're not using slang words. So instead of saying something like teen mums, you would say teenage mothers. It's also important to think about what person you are writing in. A lot of scientific writing needs to be written in the third person, so you don't use the I or we words. Instead, you would use the passive voice in the sentence. For example, instead of saying, I injected the patient, you would say the patient was injected. The other thing about academic writing is not to use lots of extra words that you do not really need, as they are not adding anything to your argument and will only be unnecessary using up precious word count. So what that's actually saying is simply be concise. When you first start writing academically, you don't think you'll be able to make the word count. 2,000 words seems an awful lot to write. 4,000 words, even more. However, by the time you're getting into your final years at university, you'll often look at a word count and think, there's no way I can say everything I need to say in that word count. So you've got to learn to be very precise and concise in the way that you write. Finally, you need to check your citations and references. Are all your sources clearly referenced, and are they all present and formatted correctly in the reference list? I'm afraid you're just going to have to check them all off one at a time. You can, of course, get help with referencing from our referencing skills guide. Once you're happy with your document, you still need to proofread it. Make sure you do leave time for this. It's often better to sleep on it so that you come back with fresh eyes. Here are our 5 proofreading tips. The first one is, if possible, print out your document. It's a lot easier to see mistakes when you're not looking at something the same as you've been staring at on the screen. If you can't print your document, it can be a good idea to do something like change the font so that it looks very different. You're more likely to pick up the mistakes then. The next thing to do is read it out loud. You feel a bit of an idiot doing it, but you'll find you will trip up over sentences where the structure isn't quite right. So you can go and check things like your punctuation to make sure that that's correct. Don't trust Microsoft Word. It sometimes does highlight things as being wrong when they're actually correct. It also doesn't notice words that you may have accidentally created into another existing word. But even though you're not trusting it, don't ignore it. If it does underline something using the spelling and grammar checker, at least check it. You might think it's right, but Microsoft Word may know better. One thing you can ignore is where it constantly tells you that you're using the passive voice. As I mentioned earlier, this is quite normal in a lot of academic writing. Another way to notice mistakes that you might not otherwise see is to separate the text into different sentences. You can either do that by highlighting over them one at a time, or you can try reading it backwards. So start at the bottom of the document and read upwards a sentence at a time. It's amazing how your eyes see what you think you have written, and sometimes by tricking them, you can notice a lot more errors. And finally, don't trust yourself. If you can, get another pair of eyes to look through it. It's often best if this isn't a person who is doing the same degree as you. They tend to notice the content and not look at proofreading the actual text. So try a family member or somebody who's doing another degree. And finally, it's a good idea to check your formatting. You should be using a sensible font. Calibri, Arial or Times New Roman are suggested. Calibri is the default font when you're opening new documents in the latest version of Word, and it's absolutely fine to use for your academic writing. The default font size is 11 point. You need to make sure you're using between 10 and 12, so that's also okay. Do note that different font families can look much bigger or smaller than others, so you may need to adjust the font size if necessary. The margins of your document should be between 2 and 2.5 centimetres all the way around. The default is just slightly over 2.5, but that's absolutely okay. Your line spacing should be 1.5 or double. Usually your supervisor or lecturer will let you know which they prefer. If they don't mention it, 1.5 is fairly standard. Your paragraphs should be spaced out with a clear line between each one. We no longer expect a first line indent, as this is seen as quite old-fashioned and was only really used when automatic spacing between paragraphs wasn't available. You're now ready to submit your essay. Well done!